"We'll fire anyone who can't meet their quotas," the young section chief said, eager to scold me. I couldn't meet my sales quota this month, so I bowed my head and said, "I understand. I'll resign." I was pushed to my limit mentally and physically, so I decided to leave the company. "Oh, you're really quitting? It'll be tough for an old man like you to lose your job," the section chief mocked me. The day after I left, I got a call from a former team member on my phone. "What's going on?" I asked. "It's bad, please come back, Mr. Watson," they said. Ever since I left, our clients had been calling nonstop, upset about my departure. Eventually, even the section chief had to bow and apologize to me. "My name is Benjamin Watson. I lost my father to illness when I was a child. I'm sorry for always making you feel lonely," I told my mom. "It's okay," she said. She raised me all by herself with no relatives nearby, working hard from morning until night. I wanted to help her, so I decided to start working as soon as I finished high school. "I'm sorry I've caused you so much trouble," I told my mom. "It's okay, just leave it to me," she replied, but finding a job was difficult. I was rejected from several places and was unemployed for a month. Finally, one insurance company gave me a chance for a sales job. I was nervous, because I knew the job would be tough with strict quotas, but I wanted to help my mom, so I went to the interview, determined to get the job. Whether they liked my enthusiasm or just needed staff, they hired me on the spot. 35 years later, I'm still working as a salesperson handling corporate clients. My monthly sales barely meet the quota, and I'm not on track for promotion, but my dedication has earned me the trust of my clients. "Can I ask you about insurance?" a client would say. "Of course. Can I visit you this afternoon?" I'd reply. Even on my days off, if someone called, I'd go to them to help ease their concerns. "Mr. Watson, are you taking enough time off?" someone asked me. "Huh? Well, yeah," I replied. "You say that, but you probably aren't," they said. It's unfair that clients get time off, but salespeople don't. But I wanted to help others, so I didn't mind. I often received thanks from my clients, and it kept me going. "Thank you for coming right away when I call." "No problem, call me anytime," I'd say. However, my boss didn't like the way I worked. "You're proud of selling such cheap insurance, aren't you?" he said. "Proud? I didn't mean to be, but every policy is important when it helps the client," I replied. I confidently responded to Section Chief Howard, even though he clearly didn't like me. Howard had recently been transferred from headquarters to our sales department. Unlike me, who only finished high school, Howard was an elite graduate from a well-known university. It was obvious that the head office had high hopes for him, as he had already become a section chief, even though he was nearly 20 years younger than me. "Do you think you're better just because you've worked for over 30 years and still haven't been promoted?" Howard sneered at me. From his point of view, I seemed incompetent, and looking at my low sales numbers, I couldn't really argue. "As part of my team, you're causing me problems if you don't bring in strong results," he added. It was clear Howard wanted to use this position to climb higher in the company, and he was very ambitious. While there was nothing wrong with his enthusiasm, I just couldn't agree with his approach. "Listen up, everyone. Selling cheap products to small businesses won't get us anywhere. Go after the big clients and sell them our best, top-tier products," Howard said, rallying the younger salespeople and sending them out. His strategy was to sell the most expensive insurance to large clients, pushing policies with the highest premiums, but I didn't agree with this method. The insurance Howard promoted covered many things and could prepare clients for all sorts of risks. However, the more coverage they had, the higher the cost, and I didn't think this was fair. Insurance should protect people without becoming a heavy financial burden, and often, it included things the client didn't really need. Howard would say, "Think of the worst-case scenario, stir up their anxiety, and make them feel like they need the insurance. That's what sales skill is all about." To me, this approach was ridiculous and didn't feel right. I believe in offering insurance that fits each company's needs, no matter their size. I take the time to listen to them carefully, which often means working late every day, but I feel it's necessary to ensure they understand everything. However, Section Chief Howard didn't agree with this approach. "Your way of working is inefficient. Sell faster and make more money," he said. I apologized, but continued doing things my way, even though I knew I was going against my boss. Still, I wasn't entirely sure if my way was the right one. "Are you even listening to me?" Howard snapped. "Huh? What did you say?" I was so worn out from work that I had been neglecting my family too. coming home late every night. I barely spent any time with them. When I was home, I was always too tired to really pay attention to my wife. I just want to spend more time with you, she said. I'm sorry, I'm just exhausted from work. You should rest on your days off. I'm worried about your health, she replied, clearly unhappy with the little time we had together as a family. Even though I was working for their sake, my family was becoming frustrated with me. It made me wonder if what I was doing was really okay. Then, my approach started to fall apart. Oh, look at that. You couldn't meet your quota, Howard mocked. I'm very sorry, I said, desperately apologizing for not hitting my sales numbers that month. He used the chance to scold me further. Mr. Watson, do you think you can make up for it next month? Section Chief Howard asked. I hesitated. If I didn't meet the quota this month, the shortfall would roll over to next month. Since I was barely meeting the current quota, the chances of catching up seemed slim. If you can't, maybe you should consider going part-time, Howard suggested with a smirk. Part-time? Is that even possible for a salesperson? I thought, confused. If you don't want that, then you're fired, Howard added. Fired? The word surprisingly didn't hit as hard as I expected. While I couldn't say I had no regrets about the job, I had been sacrificing so much, including my family time. Maybe it was time to accept being fired and focus on the family moments I'd missed. I pictured my wife's face and made my decision. Understood, I'll resign. Oh my, really quitting? It's going to be tough for an old man like you to lose your job, Howard taunted, but I just bowed my head and returned to my desk. After working here since high school, I knew I'd have to hand over my tasks. I started the resignation process that day. For the first time in ages, I came home on time. When I opened the door, my wife greeted me with a surprised look. At first, she seemed puzzled, but then she smiled. You're home early today, dinner's not ready yet. Can you wait? She said. Thank you, I replied. For the first time since we got married, I really watched her cooking, realizing how much time work had taken away from me. I've decided to quit my job, I told her. I see, she replied without asking for details. The next day, I submitted my resignation to Section Chief Howard, who seemed pleased. Please finish the handover quickly, he said with a broad smile. I cleaned up my desk and explained my duties to the person taking over. Until I officially left, I visited clients with my replacement. Mr. Watson, you're quitting? Many clients asked, trying to persuade me to stay. I politely said my goodbyes, and a month later, I left the company. It was sad to leave a place I had worked for so long, but my heart felt lighter. Surprisingly, my wife seemed to be in a good mood, even though I was now unemployed. You're not worried that I don't have a job anymore? I asked. Not at all. I was more worried that you were working too hard and might collapse one day, she replied. My wife had always been concerned about me because of how much I worked. You've worked so hard for so long. It's okay to take a break now, she added. Thanks for always worrying about me. How about we take a trip? We've got plenty of time now, I suggested. That sounds wonderful. Let's go to a hot spring and relax from all those years of stress, she said, excited. The next day, we set off for a hot spring trip. While I was enjoying the time with my wife, I got a call from a former team member. What's going on? I asked. It's terrible, Mr. Watson, please come back, he said, sounding panicked. He explained that ever since I quit, the company had been getting non-stop calls from clients who wanted to cancel their contracts. The situation had gotten so bad that it was disrupting their work. Not only are the calls overwhelming, but if we lose all these contracts, the company is going to be in big trouble. Can you please come back? He begged. I'm not coming back, I replied. What? He exclaimed. Just handle each client with care and sincerity. That's all you need to do, I said before hanging up and turning off my phone. My wife, who had been watching, looked confused. What happened? She asked. My former team member asked me to come back to work, I explained. So, they finally realized how valuable you were, huh? She said, smiling. Although I missed my work, I knew that if I went back, I wouldn't be able to enjoy these moments with my wife. Seeing her so happy made me realize it was worth staying away from work. After that, I blocked any more calls from my former colleagues and focused on enjoying our trip. While we were out for a walk, my wife invited me to an old-fashioned cafe. This place is lovely, I've always wanted to come here, she said. You really know your cafes, I remarked. At my comment, she looked a little sad, and I wondered if I had said something wrong. You know, visiting cafes is my hobby, she said quietly. Oh, I didn't know that, I admitted. Yeah, cafes are trendy and have cute food, lots of women enjoy them, she said with a smile. I'm actually a certified barista, did you know? Wow, that's amazing, I said, genuinely impressed. I remembered my wife mentioning before that visiting cafes was her hobby and that she had a barista certification. Her voice became a little sad, and I felt a pang of guilt. When I was working, I had been too tired to really listen to her stories. It's okay, she said, when we get home, I'll make you some of my special coffee. True to her word, after we returned from our trip, she made me a cup of coffee. It was completely different from the instant coffee I was used to. This is delicious, I can't believe I get to drink this at home, I said, amazed. I'll make it for you anytime, she smiled. From that day on, my mornings began with the coffee my wife brewed for me. As I spent more time with her and my family, I realized there was so much I didn't know. Regretting how much I had neglected them, I decided to make family time a priority from now on. I used to work for a company, but now I'm excited to start something new. No matter how old you get, starting fresh can be nerve-wracking, but I knew I'd be fine with my wife by my side. Together, we opened a small cafe. When I was unemployed, my wife shared a little dream with me. I want to work in a cafe I love, living a relaxed life in our old age. So, we took my resignation as a chance to chase her dream together. At first, the customers were mostly her friends, but word spread, and now our business is thriving. With my sales experience, I was good at serving customers, and my wife enjoyed chatting with friends while working. She always seemed so happy. Welcome, I said to a customer one day, only to be surprised when I saw it was Chief Howard. His eyes widened when he saw me. I smiled and led him to a seat. Is this your new job? He asked. Yes, I started it with my wife, I replied. It looked like Chief Howard was in the middle of his workday and had decided to stop by. He used to stay at the office, but it seemed like he had been visiting clients more since I left. You look really happy now, Mr. Watson, he remarked. Do I? Maybe, I said. It made me realize how tired I had always been at the company, especially since I hadn't been able to spend much time with my wife. Now, I could enjoy work and time with her. You seem to be having fun, I told him, noticing that he looked more energized than before. I'm trying to be more like you, Mr. Watson. You're my goal, he said. Then, checking his watch, he stood up. I'll bring the whole team next time. Thanks for the meal, he added before leaving, looking lighter on his feet. I believe Chief Howard will continue to grow from here. Later, my wife called out. I made coffee. Thanks, I said. After closing the cafe, we sat side by side at the counter, sipping the coffee she brewed. It had been another busy day, but it was enjoyable. Sitting there with my wife, talking about the day, felt calm and special. Thank you for everything, I said. Why so formal all of a sudden? She laughed. I smiled, realizing how much these moments meant to me. From now on, I would treasure every one of them.